Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Live and Learn. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you all had a great long weekend. If you did have a long weekend, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Time with family, turkey, all that fun stuff. But we are back here on October the 14th. It's a Monday. We have a lot to dive into from over the weekend. We haven't spoke since last Thursday. A lot's gone down. The NHL season is in full swing. We have postseason baseball. The NFL is always moving. The NBA starts a week from tomorrow, opening night in the NBA. So lots happening in the world of sports. And it's interesting because there's so much happening, and then you have so many big storylines that I could go with today, that I could open with. And we have our three feature stories that we're going to get to. And two of them are hockey based and are prevalent, at least to me right now, what's going on. But let's start with quick hits. And how about the New York Mets? They get absolutely destroyed in game one of the National League Championship Series last night in Chavez Ravine. Jack Flaherty goes 7 innings for the Dodgers. Masterpiece of a performance. Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Dodgers look great, and the Mets looked hapless. But so far this afternoon, it is 6-1 Mets in the top of the sixth. Francisco Lindor started the game with a leadoff home run. Vientos, the number 2 hitter, hit a grand slam in the third inning to break the game open. And it's been all Mets so far, with Game 3 tabbed for Wednesday back in New York at Citi Field. So good on the Mets, good on their fight to get here. They beat the Philadelphia Phillies, division rival. The Dodgers overcame the Padres, and that's Game 5 was on Friday. Entertaining game, good battle between two very good teams. I do think the Dodgers, they beat their toughest opponent. If you look at it, I don't think that the Dodgers will play a better team the rest of the Major League Baseball playoffs. I don't think the Mets are better. I don't believe the Yankees are better. I don't believe the Guardians are better. So the Dodgers, absolutely, they should be the favorite to go to the World Series and ultimately win it now that they've gotten kind of the black cat out of their system, the biggest threat to them winning the World Championship. But in Game 2, the Mets have the upper hand, and just because the Dodgers should win doesn't mean that they will, because baseball's random, baseball's weird, starting pitching, a strong bullpen, and before you know it, you're down 6-1 to the New York Mets. Guardians Yankees, the ALCS begins in about an hour and a half. When this podcast ends, that game will begin in New York. Carlos Rodon is on the mound for the New York Yankees. Alex Cobb on the mound for the Cleveland Guardians, who had a great season, won the American League Central. First-year manager Stephen Vogt coming in for Terry Francona, a future Hall of Famer who will actually be back managing next season for the Cincinnati Reds. But you replace a legend, you have a pretty solid team, you have an American League Central that was the most competitive it's been in a very long time, with the Royals making the playoffs, with the Twins just being on the outside looking in, and obviously you had the hapless Chicago White Sox. But Guardians-Yankees should be a fun series. I think you look at Cleveland, you could say they have a bit of an edge when it comes to starting pitching. Obviously for the Yankees, if Aaron Judge can wake up in the playoffs, if they can get some production, if Giancarlo Stanton's bat stays hot like it did in the DS, the Yankees should win this series. They should be the favorite. And Major League Baseball wants Yankees-Dodgers. Make no mistake about it. Yankees-Dodgers sells. Yankees-Dodgers covers East Coast. It covers West Coast. It's the two biggest brands in baseball. It's two of the biggest brands in pro sports still. Yes, baseball is no longer America's favorite pastime. It's no longer what it used to be. But Dodgers, you think of those uniforms. Yankees, they've been the same forever. people are going to watch. It'll be on Fox. You have that leading into the American election, which is less than 25 days away. So I think that's very good for baseball, pardon me. Will they get that? I don't know. I think they will. If I had to make a prediction, I think the Yankees will win. I think the Dodgers will win the championship series. It's a World Series that would feature the two MVPs in Ohtani and Aaron Judge, which is another great story for baseball if they pardon me, if they can get that. But it remains to be seen. Still a lot of games to be played. The Major League Baseball playoffs have been phenomenal so far. Games have been close. You see a pair of game fives. You'd love to see both these series go 7, so you have more baseball to talk about, more things to watch. But I think this has been a good season for baseball all in all. It's been a good postseason. The ratings look good. The games have been extremely competitive. If you're not watching postseason baseball, you're missing out. And I wouldn't recommend something that I don't buy into. For instance, don't go watch Joker 2. The movie is a complete eyesore. It's offensive. It sucks. It's garbage. Don't waste your 2 hours watching that drivel. Thanks, Todd Phillips. But playoff baseball, it's phenomenal. It's been good. And again, you have Guardians-Yankees tonight at Yankee Stadium. That's an 8:38 first pitch. So when this podcast ends, that game will begin. So a good little on tap for you in just a little while. Another quick hit. Craziness today. We had a couple afternoon hockey games, if you didn't know. There's a game in New Jersey with the Devils defeating the Utah Hockey Club for the first time this season. You had the crazy game in Ottawa that I'm going to talk about, and you also had Florida beating Boston for the second time in a week. But the Ottawa Senators win 8-7 today against the Los Angeles Kings. They had 4 power play goals. They had to use multiple goalies. Linus Ullmark did not play because he has tightness, quote unquote. And we're seeing that early in the season. We heard that from Joe Wall. We've now heard that from Linus Ullmark. The Sens lost their backup goalie in the middle of the game because he took a bump. And Mads Sogard had to come in off the bench. He gets credited with the win, yet he allowed 4 goals on 16 shots. Biggest thing for the Senators, they won the game. They need to win games early in the season. How they do it, kind of irrelevant. Their game can come together. Their game, they can play better systems. Travis Green will demand a lot from his team. I'm sure he won't be happy with an 8-7 victory because it's ugly, and that's not the way that you want to win. You're not going to win 8-7 consistently. They did today. But credit to the Senators. You win 8-7. It's a weird matinee on a Monday. But then again, they also play an afternoon game this coming Saturday. So it happens to them a lot. But they win. I look early. Senators winning. Utah getting wins early. Positive for a team that wasn't a playoff team. Even for the Devils, who missed last year. They lost to the Maple Leafs, but they're 4-1 after 5 games. In headlines, in just a little bit, I'm going to talk about a player that's going to be a star, and I want you to look out for him. Remember, I remember somebody told me this kid was going to be really good. It was on Live and Learn, and it was Noah. So gear up for that. But seeing these certain teams really play well early on, that needs to happen. You don't be Buffalo, where Buffalo's 1-3 and you're already staring up going, oh God, what are we going to do? Quick hit, brutal story. Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions yesterday sacked Dak Prescott in a 47-9 romp of them Cowboys. But during that, he fractured his tibia and his fibula. 6 to 8 month recovery time. And Aiden Hutchinson is done for the season. He led the NFL in sacks so far this year. He led the NFL in pressures. He had over 45 pressures this season. The next closest on his team is 7. So that defense obviously takes a major hit. He's one of the best defensive players in football. To me, he's on the best team in football, the Detroit Lions, my pick to win the Super Bowl. Now the conversation will pivot into, what do the Lions do? How aggressive are they going to be in trying to replace Aiden Hutchinson? And it's difficult because Aiden is a special talent. He was taken second overall in the draft. He's played at Michigan, great, all these great attributes. He's a leader, all these different things. Yet the Lions can win the Super Bowl this year. They're the best team in the NFC. They're the best team overall. But I'm not sure that they can win without an elite edge rusher, pardon me. I just told you they only have one player has 7 pressures. That's their next leading after he had 45 in 5 games, 4.5 really, because he left the game early yesterday in middle of the third quarter. So they're not getting pressure on the quarterback if it wasn't coming from Aiden Hutchinson. He's that effective. He's that valuable to the Detroit Lions. The initial thought goes to, for me anyway, what about Max Crosby? Max Crosby, the leader of the Las Vegas Raiders, another great defensive player, a machine, if you will. Yet he plays on the Raiders, who have no quarterback, have no aspirations of winning this season, and have a Davante Adams who has been holding out the last 3 weeks, hoping to get traded. The Raiders are going nowhere fast, and they need to tank in order to get a quarterback. They need to lose to hopefully win in the future. Now, I'm going to start by saying this. I doubt the Raiders trade Max Crosby. However, they should entertain the trade of Max Crosby because I think they can get a hell of a lot for him, and the Lions should be pedal to the metal trying to win this year. You lose a stud, go trade for one. Aiden Hutchinson's on a rookie contract. He doesn't need to be paid right away. He's in his second season. That money can be figured out down the line. Figure out money down the line after you win a Lombardi. That's my outlook on it. Getting some bit piece to come in, it's nice. It fills a void to an extent. But Max Crosby is elite of the elite. He gives the Raiders wins occasionally. He's a defensive player because their quarterbacks are so crap. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, I don't care who it is. They're not winning games, period. The Raiders are 2-4. Their season is over. They somehow beat the Ravens and they beat the hapless Cleveland Browns. They're not going to be a playoff team. They will probably get 5-6 wins, so they won't be picking high enough in the draft to get a quarterback that'll be a game changer. So they're in the exact same position they'll likely be in come the start of next season, which is no man's land with no hope. Having a really good receiver in Davante Adams, one of the best defensive players in football in Max Crosby, and that's it. Oh, and Brock Bowers, who's a really good tight end. Yeah, he's awesome. I would trade him because you're not going to win with him, and he's in his prime. And I don't think he wants to stay with the Raiders. If they're not going to win, he never gets to play in the playoffs. Go to Detroit, be the missing piece that ends the drought in Detroit, win a Super Bowl in Detroit. You are a legend forever. It's like winning 2 playoff rounds for the Maple Leafs. You are a folk hero. You don't got to buy a beer the rest of your life. Brad Holmes is a good GM. He's a great drafter for the Lions. He'll get on the phone. Because I don't think he's just going to sit on his hands hoping that his 7 pressure guy is going to morph into a guy that gets, say 5 pressures every couple games. I don't think it's going to happen. He knows he needs somebody. Final quick hit. Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, announced today that Tua Tagovailoa will play again in 2024. This isn't breaking news because if you follow football, if you follow professional sports, players want to play. And yes, Tua Tagovailoa has had 4 concussions in the last basically 2 years. But just because he does that doesn't mean he's not going to keep playing football. People may believe that it's not safe, that he shouldn't play. People have their opinions. Doesn't make them right. But Tua's going to come back and play. If the Dolphins have Tua, they have a chance to be competitive if he's on the field. If he's not in the field, they don't. That's been pretty well proven over the last 4 to 5 weeks with Tyler Huntley or Tim Boyle or whoever else is Skylar Thompson at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. If Tua wants to play, let him play. I'm not about telling somebody what to do with their life. I'm not about telling somebody what to do with their decision making. It's his career. It's his life. I don't really think it's on anybody to tell him what to do. It could be about anything. Vaccines, health, taking a shit. What you want to do, you do. That's not on me. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I don't really care if people don't like it. But I think for Tua, you want to take that risk, then you take that risk, knowing full well that danger is likely around the corner. And that's a scary thing. Nobody wants to see Tua get injured. Seems like a really good guy. So there's nerves there. Absolutely. No denying that. But if he wants to play and he's medically cleared and the Dolphins say, come on in, then that's just the way it goes. That's the way it is. And I'm fine with that. Because the doctors have said yes, and Tua made the decision under his own understanding, under his own control. Nobody else is telling him what to do. That's quick hits. Let's move to headlines quickly, and then we'll get to our 3 feature stories of the day. I want to start with this. This is a headline. This just came. I really thought about it today. And there's a player for the New Jersey Devils. And I said with Live and Learn, you want to get away from obscure things and you want to talk more mainstream. This is going to be mainstream. So just hold on with me for a second, okay? The New Jersey Devils have a lot of players that are very good. Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, Simon Nemec, Jacob Markstrom, Timo Meier. I could go down the list. They're a very good team. Tom Fitzgerald, the GM, has found another really good prospect. And he's found a player that is going to be a superstar in the NHL. And that player's name, and write this down if you need to remember, is named Seamus Casey. And that might sound funny because I have friends named Seamus and Casey, but no, it's Seamus Casey. NCAA defenseman, really good hands, smart, can be physical on the puck. Seamus Casey is 20 years old, born in Miami, Florida, the hockey hotbed, played at Michigan for 2 years, point per game last year, and has 4 points in 5 games this year, including 3 goals, and he's a defenseman. Just remember that, defenseman. This kid can do it all. He's a future star. New Jersey already has some good defensemen. New Jersey's good. They're small, and I worry about them for that, but they're very good. Jake Allen is as good a backup goalie as you're going to find in the NHL. He's a Stanley Cup champion. Seamus Casey will be a star. Mark it down. He could be better than Luke Hughes. I believe in him that much. He's such a smart player, and he's so great on the power play already. And he's played 5 NHL games, and he looks like a veteran. And that's when you see guys like Makar and you see these players that come out and play so well so early. To me, I can just look at him and I can tell. Seamus Casey is going to be there for the New Jersey Devils. Watch some of their games, watch the highlights, whatever you do to consume hockey content, or just listen to me, because it's going to happen. This kid is phenomenal. And he's another young, we talked about this last week on things to look out for the NHL season. There's so many good young players in the NHL right now. Michkov's played a couple games. He's just scratching the surface. He'll break out. I'm not worried about him. Good player. Look at Connor Zary for the Flames. Pivoting into another headline. The Calgary Flames. Calgary Flames are not going to be a playoff team. I don't know what the record's going to be. It won't be above 500. But it's early in the season. It's the first week. And if we're taking everything in a week kind of increments, let's do that for the podcast. We'll just talk week to week. How's teams looking? How they've improved. This Calgary Flames team, this is what I can say about them. They're not as talented as probably any team that they've played so far, including Philly, by the way. And yet they beat Philly, they beat the Vancouver Canucks, and they beat the Edmonton Oilers last night. They are a really good team when it comes to competing, when it comes to having no fear. They are a bunch of young kids that don't give a shit, that don't have any other idea about what they're doing, just going, we're going to go out there and compete. Kirkland, Zary, Anthony Mantha, who looks like the power forward that was playing for Val d'Or a long time ago, that every NHL team was hoping he'd be, but has never been. He's playing great. The Flames will fall off, but Zary, Samuel Honzek, these kids can play. These kids are playing hard. Dustin Wolf, we're going to see what he's made of this year. I think he's a pretty good player myself. I think he's going to be a pretty good goaltender. Goaltender of the future, too early. He's small. One thing I don't like about him, you see all these massive goaltenders now. Saros is great, however, so things could turn around for him. But credit to the Flames in our headline segment because they compete. And they play hard. And it's not, oh, we're not as talented. And they make up excuses and throw sticks and all this bullshit. You could look at it and go, oh, they're the Flames. It's only 1 week in. Well, it's the Flames only 1 week in. The Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche have stunk up the joint after a week. So credit is credit was due, and that's Calgary. Show up. The game started, they did. Credit to their coach for having that team ready to go, ready to play. Final headline. Utah Hockey Club. They lost today, but they're off to a great start. 3-1 on the season. Phenomenal effort. You start at home, and then you go on the road. You win at Madison Square Garden. Wow. You win in Long Island. They competed hard against the Devils today in a weird afternoon game. Dylan Guenther's got 5 goals already. Barrett Hayton's got 3. I think they got a pretty solid goaltender in Connor Ingram. They will compete for a playoff spot. Will they get there? I don't know yet. But they'll be in that mix. They got a tough schedule off the start. NHL did them no favors. to go out east this early and being a West Coast team. I look at that Los Angeles, rough for them, starting Buffalo. Then you go to Los Angeles. So you go to Ottawa. They play an afternoon game in Ottawa. Then they play in Toronto, Montreal on a back-to-back. That's not fun. Find a way, grind it out, see what you can make of it. And LA was also in Boston on Saturday, so some tough opponents early on. But Utah, they're a fun team to watch at the very least. I like watching them. They're another team that competes hard. You can tell there's a new sense of life in that organization. It's no longer the Arizona Coyotes where a player goes up to management and wants some per diem and he gets handed back monopoly money because the ownership has nothing to give out. Ryan and Ashley Smith clearly care about hockey. They clearly want the Utah Hockey Club to succeed, to be something, and the team is competing hard. Good. I like their GM. I like the Sergachev additions. Good start for them. Let's pivot into our three feature stories, and let's start. And yes, we're 26 minutes in without talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's, I know, for most of you out there, please come on now. I know we're talking about other things. Come on, we got it. We're here. We're talking about them. It's great. Toronto Maple Leafs are 3-1 on the season under 2-1. How many games have they played already? They played 2-1 under Craig Berube. Mistake number one. 2-1 under Craig Berube after a big win Saturday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins and another solid start from Anthony Stolarz as they have a couple of days off before they play the Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday. Here's my thoughts on the Maple Leafs so far. They don't like first periods because I don't think they played particularly well any first period this year, including the game against New Jersey. But after the first period, they look like the better team in every game that they played. Their goaltending has been very good in every game that they played this year. Their defense pairings are much better. Their defense pairings make sense, seem to be gelling. Timothy Liljegren, outside looking in, trade rumors. I don't give a shit if he never plays a game again this year. He brings nothing to the table. Screw him. But I think you're seeing the Berube effect a little bit with the Maple Leafs. There's a new sense of life. You're seeing a compete, whether that's with Nick Robertson or that's with Bobby McMahon being healthy scratch, then coming back into the lineup. It's just different than it was under Sheldon Keefe. There was no urgency. There was no, let's be physical, let's try to play a different way. This whole team has a bit more of a screw you mindset to it. Doesn't mean they're going to fight every night, and they shouldn't. But I think 3 games in, normal year, there might be some panic in Leaf Nation that their new captain, Austin Matthews, hasn't scored a goal yet. Which is surprising. He's the best goal scorer in the world, and he's gone 3 games without scoring a goal. Now, he'll still score 50. I still think he'll win the Rocket Richard, so there's no fear there. But Leafs fans panic. Leaf fans sweat more than anybody I've ever met. They're anal people. They're used to failure. And if something doesn't happen early on, it's pandemonium. So, looking at this, I don't sense that. Winning games, goalies are healthy, Joe Wall not available. Okay, well, who cares? He'll be here when he gets here. We like Stolarz. We like the Hildebeest. Tanev and Morgan Riley play well together. Our lineup can score goals throughout it. True. And it just looks like a well-oiled machine in Toronto, quite frankly, minus their first periods, which I think are truly dreadful. But the Berube effect to me is just their overall compete game in, game out. How they come out, how they attack. For instance, they go in and they're attacking defensemen. So on Saturday night, puck goes behind the net, comes out a defenseman, makes a pass that he probably should. It's a stick lift that goes tape to Nylander, and he goes shelf. Or to Matthew Nyes, pardon me, and he goes shelf. That's not happening under Keefe. They wouldn't have gotten that situation. They would have been hard enough to get the puck. And they still have speed, but they have toughness. Because if you watch that game, yes, it's a Craig Berube team, and they're going to be harder, and they're going to approach the game different than Sheldon Keefe. But I don't think you look at the Maple Leafs and say, well, that team looks slow. You watch the Pittsburgh Penguins, you go, that team looks slow. They're slow. That whole team is slow. Sidney Crosby looks slow Saturday night. They're not a great team, however. So there's a difference. But I like the Leafs' overall game. Their power play is still, it's a puzzle that they have to try to figure out. And luckily they have months and months to do it. Mark Savard can tinker. Mark Savard can work around it. But that power play it's no good, quite frankly. 0 for 3 on Saturday night. If you go back against New Jersey, let's see their power play so far. So 0 for 3 on Saturday night. 0 for 2. So that's 0 for 5 so far. We're doing the count here. And opening night, they got shut out. So they're 0 for 5 on the power play on the season. So that's no good. Now, Oliver Ekman-Larsson was added to the power play. I agree with that decision. It's time for Morgan Riley to get off of it. He doesn't fit. He shouldn't be on the top power play unit. Again, we've been over this 1,000 times. He kills the momentum. Puck gets on his stick, and it's just, it's nothing happens. Now, for the Maple Leafs, throughout the season, things I'm curious to see. How do William Nylander and Craig Berube get along? Because William Nylander can have a game like he did on Saturday, where I thought he played really well. He might have been the best player on the ice. Marner was very good as well, but William Nylander played awesome on Saturday to me. He was awful against the Devils, and he wasn't that good against Montreal. But how does the Nylander-Berube relationship work? Because there might be a night offensively that Mitch Marner doesn't have it. For instance, he didn't have a point in his first 2 games of the season, which is rare for him. But he's on the penalty kill, and he's on the ice doing more positive things. So I think you can go through the game and go, well, Mitch maybe didn't have it. He made some ill-advised passes, should have shot the puck a little bit more. But he penalty killed hard, and he kept them from scoring goals. So he'll be better tomorrow. Well, Nylander doesn't play the penalty kill. Nylander is very much a one-dimensional player. He's trying to score goals, trying to produce offense. And when he's not doing that, he's not a whole lot of aid to the team. His back checking is minimal at best. His overall compete on plays can certainly improve. And Berube, I don't think that sits well with him. Nor should it, because he's the coach and he demands a certain standard out of his players. And I'm fine with that. But they hunt the puck so far. Steven Lorentz is a good player. I think he's going to stick around all year. He was on a PTO, but he should have got a contract from somebody. Timmins has been fine to me. He's not a Norris Trophy winner. But if you're going Timmins or Liljegren, I don't think there's a huge difference. Timmins brings a little more offensively, a tad. I think if you're Toronto, you go, Riley's going to play, McCabe's going to play, Tanev is playing, Benoit is playing, and you look at it and go, is Timmins going to be a part of this team? And OEL is going to play, pardon me. And OEL played 25 minutes on Saturday. So Timmins is the one guy that doesn't have a slot right now. Practice today, Liljegren was paired with Benoit, so it looks like Liljegren might make his season debut on Wednesday. That might just be more about getting him in the lineup. You don't want him to be completely cold if you need him. Get him in a game. Phil Myers will remain in the press box for the Maple Leafs. But overall, I think the Leafs have played well. Again, this week, they have the Los Angeles Kings on Wednesday, and then they have the New York Rangers on Saturday. So two playoff teams, two teams that are, obviously Los Angeles missing Drew Doughty, and that's a massive piece to their team. And I don't believe Los Angeles is as good as they were the last couple of years. But you get LA, then you get the Rangers. So two playoff teams coming up that you have to fend with. Also news today in Leafland, Joe Wall was on the ice. Sounds like he might return to practice tomorrow. And he could play as soon as Wednesday. His IR stint would be over. It was only 7 days. So he could play Wednesday night if they wanted to put him in that spot. I don't see Wednesday being the day. You want to be extra cautious. Play Wednesday, then you don't play till Saturday. So it's another 2 off days before a night game on Hockey Night in Canada against the Rangers. If I had to guess, he probably plays this week. But again, Joe Wall. If you look, Kings, Rangers, Lightning, their next 3 games, all at home. They also have a back-to-back at the Blue Jackets tonight after playing the Lightning at home. So that could be a possibility where he has to play one of those 2 games. But I see him playing over the next week and change. Joe Wall being back in the fold. Getting some trust back with his teammates that he can actually show up and get his ass on the court. But other than those things, John Tavares didn't play because he's sick. But that's going around. Matthew Tkachuk's going to miss a week with an illness. Tavares didn't practice again today, so clearly something's going around in the Atlantic Division. But you beat New Jersey, impressive win. You beat Pittsburgh, not so impressive. But I like the way they're playing. So you just want to keep it going, basically. You want to keep the momentum, the good feelings going for this team. And another guy who played very well on Saturday was Matthew Knies. Matthew Knies, he could really have a great season for Toronto. We talked about this. He's playing with Marner and Matthews. 25 goals, I don't think it's off the table. 60 points, potentially 55, 60 points for Matthew Knies. Playing with those 2 gentlemen, I don't think it's crazy. I love the way he competes. I love he's not afraid to mix it up with better players, quite frankly. He just has kind of a pissed off mentality, Matthew Nyes. And it kind of sparks the top players around him to have a little bit of it too. And I like that. And I think he works hard around the boards. He's got a good shot. And I think he fits in well with those two players. Forever, I don't know. Because I still think their second line center position will need to be addressed, but there's more than one team that's going to need to address a second line center. You look at the Winnipeg Jets, who I've watched a lot of. I was watching Cowboys Lions yesterday, and that game was over, start of second quarter basically. And I turned on Winnipeg and Minnesota, and I watched Winnipeg and Chicago on Friday night. They're winning close games. Hellebuck's allowed 2 goals in 3 starts. He's been fantastic. But they're a good team, the Winnipeg Jets. Mark Scheifele. He's been one of the best players in the league to start the season. And that's not hyperbole. He's been fantastic. Competing hard, he looks good, looks fast. The Jets are winning games. Winnipeg's like Toronto, a good team. A team that I still think has high expectations. Expected to be a playoff team, expected to compete in the Central Division. Now, it doesn't have the talent quota of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but still has arguably the best goaltender in the sport. Scheifele, Kyle Connor is a flat-out stud. Morrissey's a solid defenseman. Adam Lowry and Appleton at third line, we've talked about it. But Winnipeg's another team, Vlad Nemestikov's playing second-line center. And Winnipeg's played great so far, but they win 2 games 2-1. And you can look at that a couple different ways. We can win 2-1, which is great. And there's value to that because winning 2-1 is harder than winning 5-4. But also, you can only score 2 goals. And 2 of those 4 goals that you scored in the last 2 games were 4 on 3. Power play in overtime. So when it's not overtime and it's not some sort of weird gimmick, you're not scoring that many goals. And Nemestikov, not a traditional center, is in a position where it's going to be hard for him to succeed. Because that's not his everyday position. Playing with Ehlers and playing with Perfetti. And that's a good line on paper, but I think you look at it and go, why hasn't it been that successful so far? Well, they don't have somebody to distribute them the puck. 3 guys looking to shoot first. That's a problem. Ehlers honestly would be a better center if he was bigger, because I think he's a better passer than either of those 2 guys. Scheifele can score, but he's also a fantastic passer, and Kyle Connor's getting better at passing the puck himself. His on-ice vision has improved a ton over the last little while. But the Jets, like the Maple Leafs, have looked good. You beat Minnesota, you beat Chicago, you beat Edmonton. There's your impressive win. So you haven't played great competition, but you can only beat the teams on your schedule. They're off until Friday, where they play the Sharks. Then they have Pittsburgh on Sunday, both games at home. So not a tough schedule out of the gate, but win your games early. Get a lead in the Central. Dallas hasn't lost yet. They got a shutout last night from their backup goaltender in Casey DeSmith. But I do view parallels Winnipeg and Toronto are 2 teams that kind of have the same issue, but you're overcoming it so far. You're still winning games despite having a weakness. I like Winnipeg's compete, and I think they're a solid team. They really are. But yes, it's been a solid start for Canada in the NHL. Montreal's 2-1, and their 2 wins came against against Toronto and Ottawa. So Habs fans love that. You lost to the Bruins, but it was on a back-to-back. You go, okay, well, we beat Toronto and Ottawa. We hate them. Great. Sure happy about that. You'll take that result. Mention Calgary, 3-0. 2 of those games on the road. Get wins in impressive fashion. Winnipeg, 3-0. Toronto, 2-1. Ottawa, 2-1. Then you get to Edmonton. Headline number 2, it's a mix of 2 teams. We'll get to the second one in just a minute. Let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers, who are 0-3 on the season for the first time since 2015 and have looked pretty dreadful so far this year. Following a loss to the Blackhawks on Saturday night, the Oilers lost 4-1 at home to the Flames last night. The Oilers are 0-3 to start the season, every game on home ice. Rough, to say the least. So why are they losing games? That's the million-dollar question. I have 2 real answers, and this might sound overly simplistic, but here goes. Their team defense and their goaltending. And I think it's important 9 times out of 10 to group those 2 things together. Because when a team loses, it's easy to say it was the goalie's fault. And I don't mind hammering goalies because goalies are all weird individuals. And they're like the kicker. I've made this analogy. They're sort of part of the team, but not really a part of the team because they are so weird. And they're not that fun to be around sometimes. And if you find a goalie who's kind of fun to be around, he's probably not that good of a goalie. Just my experience. But all that being said, I look at team defense and where guys are on the ice. If you look at the Oilers so far, a lot of goals are going in close to the net. Anthony Mantha scored a goal a foot away from the crease. Connor Zary put one away close to the crease. Rasmus Andersson, beautiful shot, top cheddar. I don't think Hellebuck was making that save on Rasmus Andersson last night. But a lot of goals close to the net, a lot of bad boxing out. Kirkland gets a goal and a rebound after a nice feed from Rasmus Andersson, who had 3 points last night, who's been awesome so far this year. So I think their forwards are cheating a little bit, and that includes Connor McDavid, by the way. Trying to break out of the zone, trying to make something happen, and pressing. Zach Hyman is snake bit. He can't score a goal, and it's clearly bothering him because he's making stupid decisions on the ice, and he's probably could have had about 5 goals so far this year, and he would have scored 5 of them last year, and it's not happening so far this year. They had 2 disallowed goals last night where the Corey Perry goaltender interference, how that is goaltender interference, I will never know. Video review is stupid for a number of reasons. Number 1, because they don't get it right. That's the argument from the NHL and really people who like to make rules is what I like to. You could really say the video review is like a mother. They love you and you love them, but sometimes you just want to have some fun and you don't want to be nagged all the time. And this is not really about my mother, this analogy. It's just mothers I've met in life because my mother's not like this. Well, she probably likes video review, but that's a whole other story. But mothers are, they care so much. And you like them for, you don't love them for that. You like them for that, but they care, and you want to get it right so bad. And you want it to be fair for everybody, and it just doesn't. It's not how the world works. It's a premise that is never going to work. It's a premise that is faulty, because if that's goalie interference on Corey Perry, then I don't know what's going on. It makes no sense. And if the argument is Corey Perry has a history, well, I don't really care about that, because it's supposed to be, oh, we made the right. It's not a judgment call. Hooking somebody, judgment call of the official. Did he break the rule? His stick got up, high stick, judgment call. All these different things. Goaltender, not judgment call. It's, did he interfere with the goalie? Yes. Oh, we got to go to video review. Okay. It was stupid. The next one was offside, and I hate the offside review more, and I hate the goal interference review, which is hard to believe because they both are just so terrible. But the Oilers are not losing because the officials are against them, or they're not getting a break. They're losing because of team defense, and Stuart Skinner / Calvin Pickard have been truly dreadful through 3 games. The Oilers really have 2 defensemen that you like in Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm. But also, Bouchard is horrible in his own zone. Horrible. And he's a huge guy, but plays pretty soft, if we're being honest. And that's troubling. Ekholm's fantastic because he's a jack of all trades, master of everything. But after those guys, you have Darnell Nurse, who's public enemy number 1 always, and a bunch of crap. Really. Ekholm had to play 26 minutes last night because he kind of has to. Troy Stetcher, Brett Kulak, Nurse, Bouchard, Travis Dermott, who hasn't been good. Ty Emberson played the first 2 games. He was a healthy scratch. If their third D pair gets stuck on the ice, there's a good chance the puck's setting up in the back of the net. Happened twice last night to the Dermott pair. It just doesn't work. Travis Dermott was a PTO. They spent money to bring players back. Connor Brown had a really slow start last year. He's had a slow start so far this year. I don't notice him on the ice. He's not making plays. He's not having an impact. Adam Henrique, still snoozing. Nowhere to be seen. Vasily Podkolzin, boring. Boar threw a hit in the first game. Way to go since then. Jack, you know what? Arvidsson, Bueller, nothing. It's quiet. Really quiet. You have, say, New Jersey. Seamus Casey, 4 points. Paul Cotter, 5 points. Stefan Nason, 6 points. Their bottom 6 are leading the team in points so far this year on the New Jersey Devils. It's crazy. That's how they're winning. Winnipeg's getting nothing from a line that's not McDavid. He's pressing. Hyman's trying too hard. They're still trying to figure out who they want to play with those 2 guys. I think they want it to be Skinner, but hasn't been exactly flawless so far. Skinner sucks. Pickard wasn't good on Saturday either. I'm not panicked yet because they had a truly awful start last year and they made the playoffs with ease. But they are not winning anything with that defense core. They won't win the division. They won't win with that defense. And it's not going to be improved tomorrow, so they're going to have to make adjustments. They're going to have to play better team defense. period. Because it's just not going to work. Ford's going to come back in the zone. Leon Draisaitl, you can't break all the time. Stay back. Help. Have an entry pass out. Because you cannot rely on that defense or that goaltending to bail you out. Because it's been proven it's not going to work. It will fail you. So that's my thing with the Oilers, is just have better team defense. If you know you have a weakness on your team, be aware of it. And I do think that Stuart Skinner will play better. I don't think he's an awful goaltender. He got to the Stanley Cup final last year, and he played pretty well on his way to getting there. So I think the Oilers will turn around. I think Stuart Skinner will play better hockey, but playing better team defense, playing better overall just positionally, giving your defense some help because it's a bad defense, all things that they can change right away. Practice today, they play tomorrow against Philly. Edmonton's next couple of games. Flyers ending their homestand tomorrow. At Nashville on Thursday. At Dallas on Saturday. Tough sked. Dallas, who already looked good before they head out east. So I think the Oilers have a lot to work on. Again, no panic meter yet for me because I have too much faith in Connor McDavid. I have too much faith in Leon Draisaitl that they can turn it around. They'll figure out a formula that works. So I'm happy about that. I believe they'll win tomorrow. Let me put it that way. When we chat on Wednesday, I think the Oilers will have a win on the season. They'll beat Philly to close out their 4-game homestand to start the season. But it's not good to lose 3 home games earlier in the year. Not fun, not good to do that. Another pretty solid team that's struggling out of the gates that I actually have more concern over than Edmonton Oilers, the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado is 0-2, if you weren't aware. And they lost 6-4 to the Columbus Blue Jackets on Saturday. And they've lost to Vegas 8-4. They lost to Columbus 6. That's just crazy. 14 goals allowed in 2 games. And Georgiev has been pulled in both games. They're starting goaltender. He 3 goals allowed on 9 shots faced on Saturday night. That's an .857 goals against and a .667 save percentage. That's trash. Annunen comes in. He allows 2 goals on 13 shots. McKinnon had points. He took penalties. He was frustrated in that game. Makar had a couple. They're scoring goals. 8 goals in 2 games and you don't win. They just claimed another goalie off waivers, Colorado, because they don't trust their guys. They play tonight against the Islanders, who also haven't won yet. They're 0-1-1 on the season. I don't trust Georgiev. This team's had some weird moments with Valery Nichushkin after he basically quit the team last year and started drinking or doing drugs of some kind in the middle of the playoffs. Just a selfish act against his team that I really have no sympathy for, and his teammates really had none either. Could have cost him a Stanley Cup. But Georgiev was a New York guy, and they said, we like Shesterkin more. Good call. And they said, Here, Georgiev's available, and Colorado took him. And he did help them win a Stanley Cup, no doubt about it. But also, he was dreadful last year. Hasn't been good so far this year. I do think Colorado's a good team. The bottom of their lineup could use some help, certainly. But they need a save. More than anything, they need a save. And they're not getting one right now. Saw McKinnon on the bench, breaking sticks, frustrated. He said it was with the officials. I think it's also with your goaltenders. I mean, if I scored it was 8 goals in 2 games and you don't win any of those games, that's no good. That can't happen. Losing to Columbus at home. Columbus not a good team. Columbus is so devoid of talent. They don't have great goaltending themselves, and they go on the road against a Western Conference opponent and beat you? No. That can't happen. And yet it did. Colorado, could they be in the goalie market later on? I wouldn't rule it out because I don't think Georgiev can win you a Stanley Cup. And Colorado's defense isn't bad either. Really isn't. Look at their defense. Calvin DeHaan, Sammy Girard, Cale Makar, Manson, Pullman, Devon Taves. I mean, Makar, Manson, and Devon Taves, that's a really good top 3. After that, it's weaker. Girard, not my favorite. DeHaan kind of bounced around. They could use some help in the back end, sure. That's a better defense than Edmonton. Certainly. Better defense than a lot of teams out there. And yet you can't get a save, and your captain's losing it. Rantanen had a hat trick night 1, and you lose by 4 goals in Vegas. Vegas, who trade away Logan Thompson to Washington, has Ilya Samsonov and Aiden Hill. They're 3-0. 3-0 to start the year. The Vegas Golden Knights homestand to start. And they've looked fantastic. Eichel's got 7 points in 3 games. Barbashev, 6. Stone, 6. Shea Theodore, 5. Pietrangelo, 3. Bilo Kolasar getting on the board. Brett Howden with a couple goals. Dorofev. They're getting balanced scoring. Nick Waugh has a goal. Zach Whitecloud has a goal. Balanced scoring. Solid goaltending early on for the Golden Knights. Beat the Avs, beat the Blues, beat the Ducks. Okay, not a murderer's row, but you win your games. At the Capitals on Tuesday night as they head out east. At Capitals, at Lightning Thursday, at Panthers. So tougher stretch. Three playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. But Vegas is solid. And with Edmonton struggling, Vancouver being 0-2, Vancouver in Tampa tomorrow night for Tampa's home opener after it was postponed due to the hurricane on Saturday night. Now, Tampa did win their first game of the year in Carolina. Nikita Kucherov had a 4-point night, including a hat trick. Opportunity for Vancouver. They got to get on the board. 2 losses, yes, both of them in extra time, but I don't really care. Got to find a way to win some of these games. They get Tampa tomorrow, who's only played once so far this season. Let's go. Oh, also, Sasha Barkov was injured last Thursday in a game against the Ottawa Senators. They initially thought it could be a fracture of his leg. It wasn't. It's a lower body injury, 2 to 3 weeks, so he should return mid-November. So better news for Florida. They're also without Kachuk for the next week, so no Barkov, no Kachuk, although they did beat the Boston Bruins in Boston today. So they're 2-0 against the Bruins on the season. They are 0-2 against the rest of the league. So just some tidbits on the Florida Panthers, the defending champions so far. Story number 3. Let's move to the NFL and talk about the toughest division, the loaded division, the NFC North. How about that NFC North? Minnesota Vikings, 5-0. Detroit Lions, 4-1. Green Bay Packers, 4-2. And the Chicago Bears, 4-2. Every team is above 500, and every team has a legitimate case that they could make the playoffs. Every team is good, by the way. The Vikings might have the best defensive coordinator in football right now in Brian Flores. His defense is wreaking havoc on quarterbacks, wreaking havoc on offensive coordinators. You could argue it's the reason that the Jets fired Robert Saleh. And pair that with Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, who will return sometime soon. Minnesota's a dangerous team with Kevin O'Connell, who I think is a great offensive mind and a great head coach. They have a lot going for them in Minnesota, and they're dangerous. Detroit. Mention off the top. To me, they're the best team in football. Jared Goff has gotten better with age. He's gotten better after leaving Southern California. They are the most creative offense. They have the second most powerful running back behind Derrick Henry and David Montgomery, who will run you over. You have David Montgomery paired with Jahmyr Gibbs. A little bit of lightning, a little bit of thunder. Sam Laporta, an emerging tight end who can do everything. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you could say he's been quiet this year, but still a very good player. Uber talented, can run the route tree. Tim Patrick yesterday, who they got on the practice squad after the Broncos cut him. I forgot he was in the league. And you go, oh yeah, Tim Patrick. What's he up to now? Well, yesterday, he got 3 balls for 68 yards. Some big plays. Had a 42-yard catch, Tim Patrick, that led to a touchdown. Jameson Williams, Mr. Speed, Mr. Take the top off the defense, 3 catches for 76 yards yesterday. He also likes to run the football. Khalif Raymond, gadget receiver, 4 catches for 73 yards. He had more catches than any other receiver yesterday for the Lions. Montgomery, 6.7 yards per carry yesterday. Gibbs, 5.3. Caleb Reynolds, not bad either. They have so many different weapons. Again, their defense could use it, but Brian Branch, the second-year player, what a stud. Jack Campbell, the linebacker, what a stud. Detroit has creativity. They have the defense. They have the running attack. They can beat you any way that you want to play. Makes them so hard to game plan for. Green Bay. Slow start. Jordan Love injured. in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Came back, was rough against the Vikings. But the last 2 weeks, he looked like Jordan Love. Looked like a guy that could get a team to the playoffs again. Yesterday, 22 for 32, 258, and 4 touchdowns. 1 to Watson, 2 to Dobbs, 1 to Jaden Reed. Getting better with starts. Getting better. Rams, 15 for 26, 224, 2 touchdowns. Using his legs a little bit. To me, he's a very unique quarterback, a smart quarterback. He runs an offense extremely efficiently. And at his apex, as he gets better, you could say he's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold, certainly, and above Jared Goff. Just his overall talent, his overall makeup, he could be better than him. And it's not like, it's not as if you have a bum quarterback in Jared Goff. Jared Goff went first overall. Jared Goff, Pro Bowler, got the Lions to the NFC Championship game last year. He had an 18 for 18 game the last time out. And yesterday, Jared Goff went 18 for 25, 315, 3 touchdowns. He's efficient as hell. He's smart. He does everything efficient for that offense in Detroit. And Love could be better as he keeps going. And then you have Chicago Bears, who I predicted would be a playoff team. I'm not sure I'm going to be right about that because I didn't think the Vikings would be this good. But the Bears have improved. The Bears have an offense. The Bears have a quarterback in Caleb Williams. He's seeing the field so well. I love that he's starting to throw the ball to Cole Kmet, who's a tight end that is durable, unique, big, athletic. But Caleb's finding Cole Kmet. Caleb's using screen passes. They scored 35 yesterday against the Jaguars in London, England. He ran 4 times for 56 yards. So using his legs when he has to. Kmet, 2 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, 2 touchdown receptions. The Bears are a good team. They're 4-2 going into their bye week. They 100% would take that. That's a net win for them to be 4-2, coming back from London, get a bye week, then you get to play the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams for the first time in the pros, guys who went 1-2 in the draft. And Caleb Williams is from the Washington area, by the way, so it'd be a homecoming for him in that game. This division is so tough. And Vikings have played the Packers so far. Nobody else has played each other. So these teams are going to mix it up. And Vikings and Lions play this upcoming Sunday in the game of the week to me. And that's a 2 o'clock game in Minnesota. It's an awesome game. It's better. Sunday Night Football is Jets Steelers. It's better than that game. To me, it's better than Chiefs 49ers, which will be fun. Super Bowl rematch. Ravens Bucks on Monday Night Football. It's a good game. It's a good game. But these two Goliaths, Lions 4-1, Vikings 5-0, and Vikings are coming off their bye week. So they will be rested, waiting at home for the Lions, who just went to Dallas and beat the holy hell out of Jerry Jones on his 82nd birthday. It's a hard division to figure out who's going to be a playoff team because it's so loaded and you have to play each other. And the Packers, to me, have a high ceiling. The Packers host the Texans this upcoming weekend. Another really good 2 o'clock game that has high stakes because the Packers really can't afford to lose this game. When you look at the Vikings and you look at the Lions, you have to stay with them. You can't be 4-3 because I don't think you can catch them. Packers have host Texans at Jaguars. Then they play the Lions before their bye week in week 10. Off their bye at the Bears, host the 49ers, host the Dolphins at Detroit. So they have a tough schedule down the stretch against good teams that'll be in the playoffs and against division teams in their own division that'll be above 500. This isn't the NFC South where you get the Falcons where you go, okay, we're going to play Carolina and beat them by 18. Or you get to play Jacksonville and you get to crush them, who lost big to the Bears in London. They now play the Patriots this upcoming weekend in London. What a game for the London crowd. That is a crap sandwich of a game in London, England. 1-5 Jags against the 1-5 Patriots. Gross. But the NFC North is loaded with good teams. But week 6 will end tonight, and I think we got a lot of fun stuff in the NFL. Like, I have no clue who the MVP of the league is going to be yet. No clue. To me, and I'm going to pull up FanDuel right now, and I haven't looked at odds for MVP yet this year. So I'm going to do this with all of you. I'm going to predict Lamar Jackson is number 1. That's the way I'm leaning. But again, that could be wrong. So we're going to look together. Season awards. MVP note is actually Patrick Mahomes, the front runner at plus 300. Interesting. Lamar is second, tied with CJ Stroud at plus 550. I'd have both those guys over Mahomes. Josh Allen plus 950. Brock Purdy plus 1,000. Jaden Daniels plus 1,300. Interesting. Also, Jaden Daniels has a slight lead over Caleb Williams for Rookie of the Year so far this year, which I would agree with. I think he's been a little bit better. Caleb's starting to turn the corner and look like the number 1 overall pick. But I would agree with that. But interesting for sure. But you go Bucks, put up 50 on the Saints, divisional opponent. I like the Bucks. I like Baker Mayfield. They're 4-2. But they have their warts. Falcons also have their warts, but they can score points. I don't mind their team. Bengals beat the Giants, but it was almost more of a loss, and you only put up 17 points in a win against the Giants. Danny Dimes, 114 in primetime in his career. Steelers beat the Raiders. Not impressive, but they do it. Ravens beat Washington in a very fun game. Drake May throws 3 touchdown passes in his debut. They lose to the Texans by 20. San Francisco beat Seattle on Thursday night in an important game for them. So lots going on, certainly. But the NFC North, to me, takes the cake. It's the belle of the ball right now. There's so many good teams, so many great storylines. What's going to happen here? But gearing up for week 7, there's some good games. The fact that Chiefs 49ers might be number 3 on my power rankings list tells you that it's going to be a strong week. You're going to want to find a couch, sit there and watch games. And hopefully it's not a game that includes Cincinnati and the Giants on Sunday Night Football, because that was an odd choice, I must say, to put on Sunday Night Football, to put those two teams. I get it. The Giants are a brand, and they like them, but the Giants stink. And the Bengals only put up 17. They only scored points with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So it was a pretty bland game between the two teams. But NFC North is great. and fascinating. On the way out, or the wrap-up, as we call it here on Live and Learn, Cleveland loses again, but that's not the story. Cleveland loses all the time. They're going to keep Deshaun Watson in at quarterback because they pay him too much money, and they don't want to admit they made a mistake. We all know this. We're not buying into their bullshit excuses. The more interesting thing for me, Eagles beat the Browns by 4 points. The Eagles were an 8.5-point home favorite against said Browns. They won the game but didn't cover the number and looked awful during the game. And yet Nick Sirianni went and started chirping his home crowd after the win. This guy just doesn't have a sense. This guy just doesn't have feel. That Philly crowd is ravenous. That Philly crowd will take your head off. To me, it was just a stupid thing to do. You should be thankful that you're employed. You should be thankful that they haven't fired you yet. Howie Roseman hasn't fired you. Just stupidity from Nick Sirianni. It was a fireable offense, honestly, to yell to that crowd after the bullshit that you've done recently. But that was just pure stupidity from Nick Sirianni. And he nearly lost to the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-5 and are dreadful. And should start Jameis Winston, but they won't. And I think that the fan base that is a legitimate gripe is the Cleveland Browns fan base. You deserve better. You deserve a quarterback that isn't a complete piece of shit. You deserve an owner who has any sort of sense, that has any sort of intelligence, and you don't. And I'm sorry for that. And the pain isn't over, unfortunately, because you're going to lose more games and you're going to be one of the worst teams in football this year and have a high draft pick, which will be good, but also you have a quarterback with all that dead money. So it's not totally awesome. What else? Oh, Mets lead the Dodgers 7-3 in the ninth inning. So that game is wrapping. It looks like the Mets will take game 2. Dodgers fought back a little bit, but the Mets just got a double from Starling Marte to increase that lead to 4. So it's looking good for the Metropolitans to even that series going back to Citi Field. Rangers, Red Wings tonight in the NHL. You also have Penguins, Montreal, first prime Monday Night Hockey, which, interesting, Islanders, Avalanche at 10 o'clock tonight. You also got Bills, Jets, Monday Night Football in the Meadowlands. First game since the firing of Robert Saleh. And as we sit here, the Bills are a 1.5-point favorite. It was 3.5 at one point. It was 2.5. It is now 1.5. The Jets, a home underdog. I believe in the new coach bump. I believe in getting rid of Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator will help the team. Don't know if this will save the Jets season and propel them into winning this division and being as good a team as I thought they could be. But whoever wins tonight will be in first place in the AFC East. The Bills have lost 2 in a row. I got the Jets plus 1.5 tonight. I think Aaron plays well. That banged up Bills defense, that secondary can be had. I got the Jets plus 1.5, and I have the Jets winning the game tonight outright at home in the Meadowlands. That was a fun Monday show. A lot to talk about. And we're going to do it again on Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. Thank you all for the likes tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Live and Learn, just getting started. Still doing stuff on my end to improve the content. So thank you all for bearing with me and as we go through this journey together. As always, if you want me to talk about different things on the show that I didn't get into tonight or you want me to touch on moving forward, please let me know in the comments. Please let me know via direct message, and I will discuss it. You want more Seamus Casey updates? I will happily bring that as well. So thank you all for the continued support. Have a great rest of your Monday. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.